I found the pregnancy test in the bathroom trash on the same morning I scheduled my vasectomy consultation. The pink plus sign stared up at me from beneath a crumpled tissue, and for exactly 3 seconds, my heart soared. Then reality crashed down like a freight train. I'd had my vasectomy 4 months ago. My name is David Brennan, and I'm a 42-year-old civil engineer in Portland, Oregon. I'd been married to Jessica for 16 years. We had 2 kids, Lily, 14, and Noah, 11. Or at least, I thought we had 2 kids. I stood there in our master bathroom, the test in my trembling hand, trying to make the math work. Trying to find some explanation that didn't end with my world exploding. Maybe it was old? No, the digital display was still active. Maybe it was Lily's? God, please no. I checked the date on the wrapper in the trash. Purchased 3 days ago, according to the receipt also crumpled there. Jessica was downstairs making breakfast. I could hear her humming along to some pop song on the radio, completely oblivious that I was holding a grenade with the pin already pulled. I pocketed the test and walked downstairs on autopilot. My wife stood at the stove, flipping pancakes in her yoga pants and one of my old college sweatshirts. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked exactly like the woman I'd fallen in love with in 2007. Exactly like the woman I'd trusted with everything. "Morning, babe," she said without turning around. "Want some coffee?" "Yeah," I managed. My voice sounded normal. How was that possible? I sat at the kitchen island and watched her pour my coffee, add the exact amount of cream I liked. 16 years of muscle memory. 16 years of building a life together. The test felt like it was burning through my pocket. "You okay?" she asked, finally looking at me. "You look pale." "Didn't sleep great," I said. Also true. I'd been up until 2 in the morning reviewing structural plans for the new convention center project. "Hey, random question. Have you been feeling okay lately?" Something flickered across her face. Just for a microsecond. "Fine. Why?" "You just seem tired recently." "Well, I am training for that half marathon," she said, turning back to the stove. "And work's been crazy." Jessica worked as a marketing director for a tech startup downtown. She'd been putting in long hours for the past 6 months, ever since they'd brought on a new CEO who was shaking things up. Lots of late meetings, weekend strategy sessions, a company retreat to Seattle last month. The pieces were clicking together in my head like a blueprint coming into focus. All those late nights. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer last week that she said was just for her, to feel good about herself. The way she'd been going to the gym at weird hours. The phone call she'd taken in the other room. I'd ignored it all, trusted her. We were solid. We were the couple our friends envied. David? Earth to David? I blinked. Jessica was staring at me, holding out a plate of pancakes. "Sorry, just thinking about work." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You work too hard?" The kids thundered downstairs, and breakfast became the usual chaos of backpack checks and permission slip signatures. I went through the motions, kissed everyone goodbye, and drove to my office in a daze. The moment I got to my desk, I pulled out my phone and did something I never thought I'd do. I logged into our cell phone account and pulled up Jessica's call and text records. We had a family plan, everything was in my name, so I had access to everything. My hands shook as I scrolled through the data. There it was. Hundreds of texts and calls to a number I didn't recognize. They started about 7 months ago, just a few here and there. Then they increased. Multiple times a day. Late at night. Early in the morning. During her lunch breaks. I ran the number through a reverse lookup service. Tyler Walsh, 34, also worked at Jessica's company. I found his LinkedIn in 30 seconds. Director of Business Development. Handsome in that generic way. Square jaw, perfect teeth, expensive haircut. He joined the company 8 months ago, right when everything started. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling tiles of my office. The fluorescent lights hummed above me. Outside my window, Portland went about its business, completely unaware that my entire life had just shifted on its axis. But here's the thing. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. I build things that last, that can withstand pressure and stress. And before you build, you survey. You gather data. You make absolutely certain of your facts before you commit to a course of action. So I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. I screenshot the phone records. I created a secure cloud folder with a password Jessica would never guess. I started building my case like I'd build a foundation, solid, thorough, unshakable. Then I called my doctor's office and requested a copy of my vasectomy records, including the follow-up test that confirmed I was shooting blanks. They emailed it over within an hour. Finally, I did something that made my stomach turn. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. My college roommate, Patrick Riley, who'd gone on to become one of the best family law attorneys in Oregon. We'd stayed close over the years, got our families together for barbecues, watched football together. David, long time, what's up? Patrick, I said quietly. I need your help, and I need you to keep this completely confidential. The silence on the other end told me he understood immediately. Come to my office, today if you can, and David, bring everything you've got. The mortgage application sat on my desk like an unexploded bomb. Jessica had been excited about it for weeks. The market was good, interest rates were dropping, and the house on Alameda Ridge she'd been eyeing had finally come up for sale. 4 bedrooms, renovated kitchen, a backyard big enough for Noah's soccer goals. She'd sent me the listing 3 times in one day. We should jump on this, David. Houses like this don't last. I'd agreed because that's what you do when your wife gets excited about something. You nod, you smile, you pretend your world isn't actively disintegrating. The bank had requested full financial disclosure from both of us. Tax returns, pay stubs, bank statements, credit reports, standard procedure for a jumbo mortgage. I'd submitted mine 2 days ago through the online portal. Now I stared at the email from our loan officer, Amanda Pierce. Mr. Brennan, we've encountered a discrepancy in your wife's credit report that needs clarification before we can proceed. Please have Mrs. Brennan contact me at her earliest convenience to discuss. My pulse kicked up. I forwarded the email to my personal account, then opened a new browser window and logged into the credit monitoring service I'd signed us both up for years ago. Jessica had never bothered checking hers. I was the one who handled our finances, tracked our credit scores, made sure everything stayed clean. I pulled up her report. There it was, buried in the list of open accounts. An auto loan from Pacific Northwest Credit Union, opened 18 months ago. Current balance, $32,847. Payment history, current, no late payments. The account listed Jessica as a co-signer. Primary borrower, Tyler J. Walsh. I sat back in my chair, the air leaving my lungs in a slow hiss. 18 months ago. That was before Jessica had even mentioned Tyler's name to me. Before he'd supposedly joined her company. Before any of the late nights and weekend meetings had started. I pulled up my investigation folder and cross-referenced the timeline. Tyler had been hired at Jessica's company 9 months ago, according to his LinkedIn profile. But this loan predated that by 9 months. They'd known each other longer than she'd let on. Much longer. I clicked through to the loan details. The original amount had been $41,500. Monthly payment, $687. The loan was for a 2023 BMW 330i. I'd never seen Jessica in a BMW. She drove her Subaru Outback, the same one she'd had for 4 years. Reliable, practical, perfect for hauling kids to soccer practice and dance recitals. So whose car was it? I opened a new tab and navigated to the Oregon DMV's public records database. Typed in Tyler Walsh's name. The BMW was registered to his address in the Pearl District, a condo building I recognized from my research. The same building where I'd traced some of Jessica's evening client meetings. My wife had co-signed a $40,000 car loan for her boyfriend 18 months ago. The affair wasn't 6 or 7 months old. It was older, deeper, more entrenched than I'd realized. I pulled up my phone and texted Patrick. Need to talk. You available? His response came 30 seconds later. Court until 3. Can do 3:30 at my office. I checked my watch. 2 hours. I spent them building the timeline. 18 months ago, Jessica had taken that trip to San Francisco for a marketing conference. 3 days, midweek. I'd stayed home with the kids, managed homework and dinner and bedtime routines. She'd called every night, told me about the sessions she'd attended, the networking events, the hotel restaurant where she'd had dinner with colleagues. I pulled up our credit card statements from that period, found the hotel charge in San Francisco. But there was another charge I hadn't noticed at the time, a restaurant in Portland's Pearl District. The same night she was supposedly in California, she'd lied about the trip. I kept digging, found more inconsistencies. A client dinner in Seattle that showed up as a charge at a Napa Valley winery. A weekend team retreat that generated hotel charges in Cannon Beach instead of the company's usual conference center in Hood River. Every lie had a paper trail. Every deception left breadcrumbs. And I'd been too trusting, too busy, too focused on my own work and our kids to notice. The engineer in me appreciated the irony. I spent my days checking load calculations and stress tolerances, making sure structures wouldn't fail under pressure. But I'd never stress-tested my own marriage. Never looked for the cracks in the foundation until the whole thing was ready to collapse. Patrick's office occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Willamette River, the bridges strung across it like industrial jewelry. He waved me in, closed the door, gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel worse." I handed him my tablet with the credit report displayed. Watched his eyes scan the screen, his expression shifting from neutral to grim. "Co-signed a car loan," he said, "for the guy she's sleeping with. 18 months ago, before she told me he even existed." Patrick set down the tablet. "That's a significant financial entanglement. Shows premeditation, long-term planning. This isn't some impulsive affair." "I know." "Does she know you've seen this?" "Not yet. The bank contacted me this morning. She doesn't know I've pulled her credit report." Patrick leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Here's what this tells me. She's financially invested in this relationship. Co-signing a loan that size requires serious commitment. It also means she's liable if he defaults." "She makes good money," I said, "but not enough to cover a $40,000 loan if it goes south." "Exactly. Which means she's taking a substantial risk for this guy. That's not casual. That's partnership-level commitment." The word hit like a punch. Partnership. The thing I'd thought Jessica and I had. "There's more," I said. "I've been tracking the timeline. The affair goes back further than I thought. She's been lying about business trips, client dinners, all of it. Some of the charges don't match her stories." Patrick pulled a legal pad toward him, uncapped a pen. "Walk me through it." I did. Every discrepancy, every lie, every piece of evidence I'd compiled. He took notes, asked clarifying questions, nodded at intervals. When I finished, he set down his pen. "David, I'm going to be straight with you. This is beyond a standard infidelity case. Your wife has been conducting a parallel relationship for at least 18 months, possibly longer. She's made significant financial commitments to another man. She's lied extensively about her whereabouts and activities, and now she's pregnant with his child. I know all that. What I'm saying is, this affects our strategy, In Oregon, we're a no-fault divorce state, so the affair itself doesn't impact the legal outcome. But the financial entanglement does. If she's been using marital assets to support this relationship, and co-signing that loan suggests she might have, we can make an argument for dissipation of marital assets. I sat forward. Explain. Dissipation means one spouse has used marital funds inappropriately, usually to support an affair. If we can prove she's been spending your joint money on Tyler or using marital assets as collateral, the court can compensate you during property division. How do we prove that? Bank records, credit card statements, any evidence of money flowing from your joint accounts to him or to their shared expenses. The car loan is a start, but we need more. I thought about our joint checking account, the one where both our paychecks got deposited, the one we used for household expenses and bills. I can get that, I said. Patrick nodded. Do it quietly. Don't let her know you're looking. And David, he paused, met my eyes. When are you planning to confront her about the pregnancy? I don't know. You're going to have to eventually. The mortgage application is going to force the issue. She'll have to explain the car loan to the bank, which means she'll know you know. Let her explain it, I said. I want to hear what she says. She'll lie. I know. But I want to hear the lie. I want to see how far she'll go. Patrick studied me for a long moment. You're playing this carefully. Good. Keep documenting everything. Every conversation, every inconsistency. When this goes to court, we want an airtight case. It won't go to court, I said. She'll settle. You sound confident. I am. Once she realizes how much evidence I have, she'll know fighting is pointless and expensive. Patrick's expression shifted, something between approval and concern. Just make sure you're prepared for how ugly this might get. Affairs are one thing, financial betrayal is another. When you combine them, people get desperate. Good, I said. Let her be desperate. I left his office with a new list of tasks. Pull the joint bank records for the past 2 years. Cross-reference every transaction against our calendar, against Jessica's claimed whereabouts. Look for patterns, cash withdrawals, Venmo transfers, anything that didn't fit our normal spending. Build the case brick by brick. I was good at that. It's what I did for a living. By the time I got home that evening, I'd already started. The bank called Jessica on Thursday afternoon. I was in my home office reviewing structural plans when I heard her phone ring in the kitchen. Through the open door, I caught the shift in her voice, that particular brightness she used with strangers when she needed to sound professional and in control. Yes, this is Jessica Brennan. A pause. Oh, right. The mortgage application. Another pause, longer this time. I set down my pen. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Her voice had gone tight. What car loan? There it was. I'd known this call was coming. The mortgage underwriter had been reviewing our application for 3 days now, running credit checks, verifying employment, examining every financial thread of our lives. Patrick had warned me that the co-signed loan would surface immediately. A $41,500 obligation in Jessica's name, tied to someone who wasn't her husband, would raise red flags with any competent underwriter. I think there might be some mistake. Jessica's laugh sounded forced. Can you give me the account number? I heard her footsteps crossing to the kitchen desk, the scratch of pen on paper. And this was opened when? February of last year? 18 months ago. Exactly what I'd found. No, I understand you need clarification. Can I call you back tomorrow? I need to pull my records. She ended the call. I heard the phone clatter onto the counter, then silence. I waited. David? Her voice carried that careful casualness she'd been using lately. You in your office? Yeah. She appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. her expression arranged into puzzled concern. She'd gotten good at this, the performance of normalcy. I wondered how long she'd been practicing. Weirdest thing just happened. The mortgage guy called about some car loan that's supposedly in my name. Like, from last year. I looked up from my plans. A car loan? I know, right? It makes no sense. She shook her head, selling the confusion. He said it's for over $40,000. I told him it had to be a mistake. Identity theft? That's what I'm thinking. She leaned against the door frame, and I recognized the posture, seeking my help, my expertise, my protection. How many times had she stood exactly like that over 16 years? Should I call the credit bureaus? File a police report? I kept my face neutral. Probably. What's the account number? She glanced at the paper in her hand. I wrote it down. I'll look it up online, see if I can figure out what bank it's through. Want me to help? No, I've got it. Too quick. I mean, you're busy. I'll handle it. The mortgage guy needs an answer pretty fast, right? We're supposed to close in 3 weeks. Something flickered across her face. Yeah, tomorrow. I told him I'd call back tomorrow. Okay. I returned to my plans. Let me know what you find out. She lingered another moment, then disappeared back into the kitchen. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, the click of our bedroom door closing. She'd be up there now, probably calling Tyler, her voice low and urgent. Trying to figure out how to explain this. Trying to coordinate their stories. The beautiful thing about lies was how they compounded. One deception required another, then another, building into an unstable structure that eventually collapsed under its own weight. Jessica had co-signed that loan 18 months ago, probably thinking it would never matter. A favor for Tyler, maybe. Or proof of commitment. A financial entanglement that tied them together in a way that felt permanent. She'd never expected we'd apply for a mortgage. That had been her idea, actually. 3 months ago, she'd started talking about upgrading, finding a bigger place in a better school district. I'd been hesitant. Our current house was paid off, and taking on new debt seemed unnecessary. But she'd pushed, talking about investment potential and the kids' futures, wearing down my resistance with spreadsheets and Zillow listings. Now I understood why. She'd wanted to move, to start fresh somewhere new. Probably somewhere closer to Tyler. Maybe she'd even imagined a future where she could transition from one life to another, sliding seamlessly from our marriage into whatever she'd built with him. She just hadn't counted on the bank actually doing its job. My phone buzzed. Patrick. Bank called her yet? 10 minutes ago, I typed back. She's claiming identity theft. Predictable. You recording? Didn't need to. She came to me directly. Smart. Let her dig. Don't offer solutions. I set the phone down and tried to focus on the structural plans in front of me. A commercial renovation project downtown that needed my approval by tomorrow. But the numbers blurred. I kept thinking about Jessica upstairs, spinning her story, trying to find a way out. The thing was, there wasn't one. Even if she somehow convinced the bank it was identity theft, that would trigger its own investigation. She'd have to file a police report, submit affidavits, potentially press charges against whoever had fraudulently used her information. That paper trail would lead straight back to Tyler, to the dealership where he'd bought his Audi, to the documents she'd signed with her own hand. And if she admitted the truth, that she'd knowingly co-signed the loan, the mortgage would be denied. Our debt-to-income ratio would be too high, our financial picture too complicated. The dream house she wanted would evaporate. Either path led to exposure. I heard her coming back downstairs around 6, her footsteps slower than before. David? I found her in the kitchen, staring at her laptop. Her face had gone pale. I looked up the loan. Her voice was quiet. It's real. It's in my name. Jesus, did you call the credit bureaus? Not yet. She closed the laptop. I'm trying to figure out how this happened. The account was opened in Portland, at a dealership on Southeast Division, February 14th, last year. Valentine's Day. Of course. Do you remember being in that area that day? I kept my tone helpful, concerned. Maybe someone got your information somehow. I don't know. Maybe? She rubbed her temples. God, this is such a mess. The mortgage guy said we can't proceed until it's resolved. What did he suggest? He said I need to either prove it's fraudulent or accept responsibility for the debt. She looked up at me, and for just a second I saw genuine fear in her eyes. David, if this is real, if someone actually took out a loan in my name, this could ruin our credit. The house, everything we've been planning. We'll figure it out. I moved closer, playing my part. The supportive husband, the problem solver. First thing tomorrow, call the dealership, get copies of the paperwork, see what name is on the loan besides yours. She went very still. What do you mean besides mine? Co-signer loans have two names, right? You and whoever actually bought the car. If it's fraud, that other name might give us a lead. I watched her process this, watched her realize the trap. If she called the dealership, they'd tell her what she already knew, that Tyler Walsh was the primary borrower, that she'd sat beside him in the finance office, had signed document after document, had smiled at the salesman while her boyfriend drove off in his new Audi. If she didn't call, she'd have to explain why. Right, she said finally. That makes sense. Want me to call with you? Sometimes dealerships respond better to men. No? Again, too fast. No, I'll handle it. It's my credit, my problem. It's our problem, Jess. We're married. Something crossed her face at that. Guilt, maybe, or irony at hearing those words now. I know, I need to figure out what happened first. Then we can deal with it together. She excused herself to start dinner, moving through the kitchen with mechanical precision. I watched her chop vegetables, her knife work precise and controlled, every movement calculated. She was thinking, planning, trying to find a way through this that wouldn't destroy everything. There wasn't one. That was the thing about structural engineering. You learn to recognize when a foundation was compromised, when the weight-bearing walls had been damaged beyond repair. You could patch and reinforce, but sometimes the only safe option was controlled demolition. Our marriage had been compromised 18 months ago, maybe longer. Every day since had just been Jessica adding more weight to a failing structure, never realizing that eventually, inevitably, it would collapse. The bank had just identified the critical fault line. Now we'd see how long it took before everything came down. The mortgage officer called me back at 2:47 p.m. Mr. Brennan, I wanted to give you an update on the situation we discussed. Sharon Mitchell's voice carried that particular blend of professionalism and discomfort that came from dealing with other people's financial disasters. Your wife came in this morning with documentation regarding the account in question. I leaned back in my office chair, watching the rain streak down the window. What kind of documentation? A police report. She's claiming identity theft. Sharon paused. Mr. Brennan, I need to be frank with you. This puts us in a difficult position. If there's an active police investigation into fraudulent use of her identity, we'll need to pause the mortgage application until it's resolved. That could take months. I understand. My voice stayed level. What happens next? The police will investigate. They'll contact the lender who issued the car loan, request documentation, interview witnesses, standard fraud investigation protocol. Another pause. Mr. Brennan, if you have any information relevant to this matter, you should contact the Portland Police Bureau directly. I thanked her and ended the call. Jessica had actually done it. Filed a false police report. I sat there for a full minute, processing the implications. She'd just committed a Class A misdemeanor, possibly a felony depending on how far she took it, all to cover up the affair. My phone buzzed. Patrick. She filed, I said before he could speak. Jesus Christ, I heard him exhale sharply. David, this changes things. Filing a false police report is serious. If she maintains this story and they discover it's fraudulent, she could face criminal charges. Good. No, not good. Not if you want this to stay quiet for the kids' sake. Patrick's voice took on that attorney edge. If she gets charged, it becomes public record. Court appearances, possible jail time, media attention if it's a slow news day. Is that what you want Lily and Noah to see? I hadn't thought about that. My hand tightened on the phone. So what do I do? Give her a chance to withdraw it. Tonight, maybe tomorrow. Let her realize how deep a hole she's digging. If she doesn't back down, then we move forward with everything we have. He paused. But David, once we go nuclear, there's no taking it back. After we hung up, I opened my secure folder and added a new document. Police report. False filing. 11/14/2023. I'd need to get a copy of that report. Public records request, maybe? Or Patrick could probably obtain it through legal channels. My desk phone rang. Internal line. David, you have a visitor? Brenda, our receptionist, sounded puzzled. Your wife is here? Jessica never came to my office. In 16 years, maybe 3 times total, all for company events. Send her back. I had exactly 30 seconds. I closed all the windows on my computer, locked my phone, and arranged my face into something approaching normal. The evidence was safe. Everything was backed up in 3 separate locations she'd never find. Jessica appeared in my doorway looking like she'd aged 5 years since breakfast. Her makeup was smudged, her yoga pants replaced by jeans and a sweater. She'd been crying. Hey. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Can we talk? Of course. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the one where clients usually sat. She flinched slightly at the formality but sat down. The bank called you, didn't they? Her voice was small. They did. David, I need you to believe me. She leaned forward, hands clasped together. I don't know anything about that car loan. Someone stole my identity. It happens all the time. You hear about it on the news? Jessica. I kept my voice gentle. They said the loan was taken out 18 months ago. You didn't notice anything on your credit report during that entire time? I don't check it that often. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Maybe once a year? And we've been so busy with the kids and work and everything. The bank said the account is current. Someone's been making payments every month for 18 months. I watched her face carefully. Identity thieves don't usually do that. She blinked. What? If someone stole your identity to buy a car, they wouldn't keep making payments. They'd default, disappear. The whole point is to get something for free. I leaned back in my chair. But this account is in perfect standing, not a single late payment. I could see her mind working, trying to adjust the story. Maybe they're making payments to avoid getting caught, to keep it under the radar? For 18 months? On a $40,000 loan? I shook my head slowly. That doesn't make financial sense. If someone had that kind of money, why commit fraud in the first place? I don't know, David. Her voice rose. I don't know how identity theft works. I just know I didn't sign for any car loan. Okay. I kept my tone calm, reasonable. The police will figure it out. They'll investigate, look at the documentation, maybe check handwriting samples, security footage from when the loan was signed. Her face went pale. Security footage? Most dealerships have cameras. Banks, too. It's been 18 months, but they might still have the recordings archived. I was making this up as I went along, but her reaction told me everything. They'll be able to see who actually signed the paperwork. She stood up abruptly. I should go. I just wanted to make sure you knew what was happening, that we're on the same page. Jessica. I stood too. If there's anything you want to tell me, now would be the time. For a moment, I thought she might crack. Her mouth opened, and I could see the war happening behind her eyes. Truth or lies. Confession or commitment. I've told you everything I know. She moved toward the door. I'll let you get back to work. She left. I sat back down and pulled out my phone, typing a quick message to Patrick. She came to my office, maintaining the identity theft story, panicked when I mentioned security cameras at the dealership. His response came immediately. She's going to crack. Give her 24 hours. I wasn't so sure. Jessica had always been stubborn. Once she committed to a position, she'd defend it to the death. It was one of the things I'd loved about her, back when that stubbornness was directed at external challenges instead of maintaining lies. My phone buzzed again. Different number. I didn't recognize it. Is this David Brennan? Speaking. Mr. Brennan, this is Detective Amy Foster with the Portland Police Bureau. Your wife filed a report this morning regarding possible identity theft. I'm calling to ask you a few questions if you have a moment. I sat up straighter. Of course, Detective. Your wife indicated that you discovered the fraudulent account when applying for a mortgage together. Can you walk me through exactly what happened? I did, keeping my tone neutral and factual. The mortgage application, the credit check, the car loan appearing on Jessica's report. I didn't mention Tyler Walsh. I didn't mention the affair. Just the facts as they'd been presented to me. And you had no knowledge of this loan prior to the credit check? None whatsoever. Has your wife mentioned knowing anyone named Tyler Walsh? My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice steady. Not that I recall. Who is that? The name on the car loan. He listed your wife as a co-signer. Papers rustled on her end. According to the dealership records, they both came in together to sign the paperwork. May 15th, 2022. May 15th, 2022. 18 months ago. I pulled up my calendar, scrolling back. That was a Sunday. Yes, sir. I found the date. Jessica had told me she was at a marketing conference in Seattle that weekend. I'd stayed home with the kids. We'd gone to Lily's soccer game on Saturday, ordered pizza, watched a movie. Detective, can I ask what happens next in an investigation like this? We'll interview Mr. Walsh, review the documentation from the dealership and the lender, check for any security footage that might still exist. If your wife's signature was forged, we'll be able to determine that through forensic analysis. She paused. Mr. Brennan, in your opinion, is there any possibility your wife knew about this loan and simply forgot about it? Forgot about co-signing a $40,000 loan? I let the absurdity hang in the air. I don't think so, Detective. People sometimes make financial decisions they later regret and try to distance themselves from, especially if a relationship with the other party has soured. So the detective was already suspicious. Good. I really can't speak to that, I said carefully. I only know what Jessica told me, which is that she has no knowledge of this loan. Understood. Thank you for your time, Mr. Brennan. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. After she hung up, I sat there staring at my phone. May 15th, 2022. The Seattle conference that never was. I pulled up our credit card statements from that weekend, something I'd been meaning to do anyway. No charges in Seattle, but there were charges in Portland. Dinner at Clyde's Prime Rib on Saturday night, $187. Breakfast at Screen Door on Sunday morning, $43. 2 expensive meals for 2 people while I'd been home feeding the kids pizza and cereal. I added the receipts to my evidence folder and titled the file, Seattle Conference, May 2022. The affair was at least 18 months old, probably longer. And now, Jessica had lied to the police about it. I wondered how long it would take before she realized she couldn't lie her way out of this one. The loan officer's desk phone rang twice before she picked it up. I watched her face shift from professional neutrality to careful attention, her eyes flicking between Jessica and me as she listened. "Yes, she's here now," Linda said. "Mm-hmm. Yes, I can do that." She hung up and folded her hands on the desk. "That was Detective Foster. She'd like to speak with you, Mrs. Brennan. She's on her way here now. Should be about 10 minutes." Jessica's face went pale. "Here? Why would she come here?" "She didn't say." Linda's tone was perfectly neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around her eyes. She'd been doing this job long enough to recognize when something wasn't adding up. "This is ridiculous," Jessica said. "I already filed the report. What else does she need?" I said nothing. Just sat there with my hands in my lap, watching my wife scramble. "In the meantime," Linda continued, "I do need to inform you that we can't proceed with the mortgage application until this matter is resolved. The loan on your credit report represents a significant liability that wasn't disclosed in your initial application. But I told you, it's fraud, identity theft. It shouldn't count against us. Once the police investigation confirms that, we can revisit the application." Linda's smile was practiced and impenetrable. "Until then, I'm afraid we're at a standstill." Jessica turned to me. "David, say something. Tell her we need this house." I met her eyes. "Do we?" "What? Do we need this house? You're the one who's been pushing for it. I was fine where we were." Her mouth opened, closed. "I thought you said you liked it. The extra space for the kids, the better school district." "You liked it," I said quietly. "You picked out the neighborhood. You found the listing. You scheduled the viewings." I paused. "You said it was only 15 minutes from your office." Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe. Or calculation. "I don't understand what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." Linda cleared her throat. "Perhaps you two would like to wait in the lobby. I'll come get you when Detective Foster arrives." We sat on opposite ends of a leather sofa in the bank's waiting area. Jessica pulled out her phone, typed something, deleted it, typed again. Her leg bounced up and down, heel tapping against the marble floor. "Stop staring at me," she said without looking up. "I'm not. I can feel you judging me." I almost laughed, judging her, as if that was the worst of it. "How long have you known Tyler Walsh?" I asked. Her fingers froze on the screen. "What?" "Simple question. How long have you known him?" "I told you. He joined the company last year." 18 months ago, I interrupted. "You co-signed that loan 18 months ago. So either you knew him before he joined your company or you co-signed a $40,000 loan for someone you just met." I kept my voice conversational. "Which is it?" She was saved from answering by the appearance of Detective Foster, who walked through the bank's entrance with the same unhurried confidence she'd shown at our house. Linda materialized from her office to greet her. "Mrs. Brennan? Mr. Brennan? Would you come with me, please?" We followed Linda and the detective to a small conference room. Linda excused herself, closing the door behind her. Detective Foster sat across from us, pulling out a notepad. "I appreciate you both being here. I have some follow-up questions about the identity theft report you filed." "Of course," Jessica said. Her voice had steadied. "Whatever you need." "I spoke with Mr. Walsh this morning. Tyler Walsh." Jessica's composure cracked, just for a second. "Oh?" "He was very cooperative. Confirmed that you co-signed the loan for him at Riverside Motors on March 15th, 18 months ago. He provided copies of the paperwork with your signature, your driver's license information, and your social security number." The detective consulted her notes. "He said you went to the dealership with him, stayed for the whole process, even test drove the car with him before he made his final decision." The silence in the room was absolute. He also mentioned, Foster continued, that you'd been dating for about 3 months at that point. Said you were very supportive of him getting a reliable vehicle since his old car had broken down. Jessica's face had gone from pale to ashen. He's lying. Is he? Foster's expression remained neutral. Because I also spoke with the finance manager at Riverside Motors. She remembered you. Said you were very friendly, very engaged in the process. She specifically recalled you asking about the monthly payment amounts and whether the loan would affect your personal credit score. No, that's not. She pulled the security footage from that day. Would you like to see it? I watched my wife's world collapse in real time. Her mouth opened and closed. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Mrs. Brennan, filing a false police report is a crime. It's a Class A misdemeanor in Oregon, punishable by up to a year in jail and a fine of up to $6,000. Foster's tone remained professional, almost kind. Before this goes any further, I need to ask you directly. Did you willingly co-sign that car loan for Tyler Walsh? The seconds stretched out. I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant sound of voices in the bank lobby, the ragged edge of Jessica's breathing. I want a lawyer, she whispered. Foster nodded, unsurprised. That's your right. But I need you to understand the situation you're in. Right now, you filed a false report, but you haven't been charged with anything. If you recant the report now, explain that you made a mistake or misunderstood the situation, we can close this without criminal charges. And if I don't? Then I'll continue my investigation. I'll review that security footage. I'll interview more witnesses at the dealership. I'll pull your phone records to establish the timeline of your relationship with Mr. Walsh. She paused. And when I have enough evidence, I'll recommend charges to the district attorney. Jessica looked at me then. Really looked at me, for the first time since we'd sat down. Her eyes were wet, desperate. David, please. I made a mistake. I panicked. I didn't know what else to say when the bank asked about it. So you lied to the police. I was scared. I didn't think it through. You've had plenty of time to think it through, I said. You filed the report yesterday. You've maintained the story through multiple conversations. This wasn't panic. This was a choice. Mr. Brennan, Foster said, I need to speak with your wife alone for a moment. Would you mind waiting outside? I stood. Looked down at Jessica, this woman I'd shared 16 years with. This stranger who'd co-signed a loan for her boyfriend. Who'd lied to me, to the bank, to the police. One more thing, I said. The house you wanted. The one in the Westview neighborhood. It's 12 minutes from Tyler's apartment. I checked. Her face crumpled. I walked out of the conference room, through the lobby, out into the parking lot. The afternoon sun was too bright, the air too clean. I leaned against my truck and pulled out my phone. Patrick answered on the second ring. How'd it go with the bank? She filed a false police report. The detective just confronted her with security footage and witness statements. A low whistle. She actually went through with it? She's in there now, deciding whether to recant or lawyer up. David, this changes things. If she's charged with filing a false report, it affects the divorce proceedings. Shows a pattern of deception, willingness to lie to authorities. I know. This is good for you. I know it doesn't feel like it, but I know, I said again. Listen, I need you to do something. File the papers. Today. I don't want to wait anymore. A pause. You're sure? Through the bank's glass doors, I could see Jessica's silhouette in the conference room, her head in her hands. Detective Foster sat across from her, patient and implacable. I'm sure. I'll have them ready by end of business. You can serve her tomorrow. I hung up. Stood there in the parking lot, watching the woman I'd married make her choice. She'd already made so many. The affair, the loan, the lies, the false report. Now it was my turn. The divorce papers hit Jessica's desk at her office on a Friday afternoon. exactly 48 hours after Detective Foster showed her the security footage. Patrick called to confirm delivery at 3:17 p.m. She signed for them herself, he said. Messenger service said she went white as a sheet. I sat in my home office, the door locked, staring at the timeline I'd constructed across 3 whiteboards. 18 months of lies, mapped out in different colored markers. Red for confirmed meetings with Tyler, blue for fabricated business trips, green for unexplained expenses. The pattern was damning. A second life running parallel to ours, invisible until you knew where to look. My phone buzzed. Jessica. We need to talk, please. I deleted it without responding. 5 minutes later, another text. David, I can explain everything. It's not what you think. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Patrick. He'd told me to save everything, respond to nothing. Let her panic. Let her scramble. The more she reached out, the more desperate she'd appear when we got to court. The house phone rang at 4:30. I didn't answer. Jessica's mother called my cell at 5:15. I sent it to voicemail. By 6:00 p.m., I had 14 missed calls and 23 text messages, each one more frantic than the last. Please don't do this to the kids. We can work this out. For Lily and Noah. You're making a huge mistake. That last one almost made me laugh. I was making a mistake. After everything I'd uncovered, after 18 months of systematic deception, after she'd co-signed a car loan for her boyfriend and lied to police about it, I was the one making a mistake. I forwarded all of it to Patrick. At 7:30, I heard Jessica's car in the driveway. I'd been expecting this. The kids were at my sister's place in Seattle for the weekend, a trip I'd arranged 3 days ago. Jessica didn't know they were gone. She thought she'd come home to a normal Friday evening, maybe convince me over dinner that the divorce papers were premature, that we could fix this. The front door opened. David. I stayed in my office, her footsteps on the stairs. Fast, urgent. David, where are the kids? Safe, I called through the locked door. What does that mean? Where are they? Not here. Silence. Then the doorknob rattled. Open this door. We need to talk. No, we don't. David, please, this is insane. You can't throw away 16 years because of some misunderstanding. I set down my pen, picked it back up, continued adding notes to the timeline. April 2023, Tyler's car loan approved. May 2023, Jessica's first client dinner in Seattle that lasted until 2 a.m. I know you're upset, Jessica continued, her voice taking on that reasonable tone she used with difficult clients. But you're not thinking clearly. We have children. We have a life together. You can't just blow it all up over… Over what? I asked. Over you co-signing a $40,000 loan for another man? Over you lying to police? Over you being pregnant with someone else's baby? The silence that followed was absolute. How did you… Her voice cracked. I didn't… The pregnancy test in the bathroom trash. 3 weeks ago. I heard her lean against the door. A soft thump, like she'd pressed her forehead to the wood. David, I was going to tell you. When? Before or after you moved into the house 12 minutes from Tyler's apartment? It's not… She stopped. Started again. Tyler and I, it's complicated. But it doesn't mean I don't love you. We can get through this. People make mistakes. Marriages survive. Jessica. I kept my voice flat, emotionless. Stop talking. No, I won't stop. You don't get to shut me out. This is my marriage too. My family. You can't just… I already did. I pulled up the email Patrick had sent an hour ago. As of 4 p.m. today, you're officially served. You have 30 days to respond. My attorney recommends you get your own representation. Your attorney? Her voice rose. You hired a divorce attorney without even talking to me? What would we talk about? How you've been sleeping with Tyler for 18 months. How you lied about business trips. How you committed fraud by co-signing that loan and then filed a false police report. I didn't commit fraud. I signed that loan because she caught herself. I waited. Let the silence stretch. Because what? I finally asked. No answer. Because Tyler needed it? Because you were already planning a future with him? Because you'd been with him since before he even officially worked at your company? Still nothing. I stood, walked to the door, kept my voice low and controlled. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this house tonight. You're going to stay somewhere else. I don't care where. A hotel, Tyler's apartment, your mother's place. But you're not staying here. You can't kick me out of my own house. Actually, I can. I spoke with my attorney about that too. Given the pregnancy and the ongoing police investigation, I have grounds for an emergency custody order. If you want to see Lily and Noah, you'll cooperate. You bastard, her voice shook. You're using our children as leverage? No. I'm protecting them from a mother who's been lying to everyone for 18 months, who's pregnant with another man's baby, who's currently under investigation for filing a false police report. I'm recanting that report. Detective Foster said if I recant, they'll drop it. Then you'll be admitting you lied, that you knowingly co-signed a loan for your boyfriend while married to me, that you've been having an affair for at least 18 months, probably longer. I could hear her breathing on the other side of the door. Fast, shallow. You've been planning this, she whispered, all week, while you were acting normal, making coffee, saying good morning. You were planning this. Yes. You're a monster, I almost laughed. I'm a monster. That's interesting. David, please. The anger drained from her voice, replaced by something that might have been genuine desperation. Please don't do this. We can fix this. I'll end things with Tyler. I'll do whatever you want. Counseling, therapy, anything. Just don't. What about the baby? Silence. You're pregnant with his child, Jessica. There's no fixing that. I could. She stopped. Could what? Get an abortion. Would you do that to save our marriage? The pause told me everything. She wouldn't. Or couldn't. Or didn't want to. I need to pack some things, she finally said. I already did. I'd spent the afternoon boxing up her clothes, toiletries, laptop. Everything sat in the garage, neatly labeled. It's all in your car. You packed my things. Yes. While I was at work. Yes. Another long silence. Then, I want to see the kids. Not tonight. David, they're my children. You can't. They're at my sister's. They'll be back Sunday evening. You can see them then, supervised. Supervised? Her voice cracked. You think I'd hurt them? I think you've been lying to them for 18 months. I think they deserve better than a mother who's been living a double life. I heard her slide down the door, sitting on the hallway floor. A soft sob, quickly stifled. Part of me wanted to feel something. Sympathy, maybe. Regret. But I'd spent 3 weeks uncovering lie after lie, discovering that the woman I'd loved for 16 years was someone I'd never really known. The grief had burned through me already. What remained was ash and determination. I loved you, she said quietly. I know you don't believe that, but I did. I do. You have a funny way of showing it. Tyler was exciting, new. He made me feel young again, but it was stupid. A mistake. It doesn't mean I stopped loving you. You co-signed a car loan for him 18 months ago, Jessica. You planned business trips around seeing him. You lied to me, to our kids, to everyone. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. You made it every single day for 18 months. I know. Her voice was barely audible. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Then what does? What do you want from me? I opened the door. She sat on the hallway floor, mascara streaked down her face, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "I want you to leave," I said. "I want you to get a lawyer. I want you to prepare for the fact that you're about to lose everything: the house, primary custody, your reputation. And I want you to understand that you did this. Not me. You." She looked up at me, and for just a second I saw real fear in her eyes. "The car's packed," I said. "You should go." Epilogue. 3 years later, I stood in the backyard of my house, not the dream house Jessica had wanted, but the one we'd already owned, the one I'd kept in the settlement, watching Noah line up a soccer ball for a penalty kick. Lily sat on the deck doing homework, her headphones in, occasionally glancing up to watch her brother. The divorce had been finalized in 8 months. Jessica fought at first, hired an expensive attorney who tried to argue for equal custody and half of everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. The car loan, the fabricated business trips, the credit card statements showing dinners and hotels while she'd claimed to be at conferences, the pregnancy with Tyler's child. Her lawyer had eventually convinced her to settle. She got supervised visitation every other weekend, a portion of her retirement account, and her car. I kept the house, primary custody, and most of our savings. The judge had not been sympathetic to someone who'd committed financial infidelity and lied to police. The baby, a boy, was born 6 months after our divorce was final. Jessica named him Ethan. I'd never met him. Lily and Noah saw their half-brother during their visits with their mother, but they didn't talk about it much. I didn't ask. Tyler and Jessica had lasted another year before that fell apart too. Turns out, relationships built on deception don't have strong foundations. He'd moved to Seattle for a job opportunity. She'd stayed in Portland, working for a different company now, living in a small apartment in Beaverton. The kids were doing okay. Better than okay, actually. Lily was thriving in high school, talking about colleges, dating a boy from her debate team. Noah had made the select soccer team and spent most of his free time practicing. They'd been angry at first, at me for breaking up the family, at Jessica for lying, at the whole situation. We'd done therapy, lots of it. They still saw their mother regularly now, unsupervised, though they'd chosen to keep living with me primarily. "Dad, did you see that?" Noah pumped his fist as the ball sailed past an imaginary goalkeeper into the net. "Beautiful curve," I called back. "Just like we practiced." My phone buzzed. A text from Emma, the structural engineer I'd been seeing for 6 months. We'd met at a professional conference, started talking about load-bearing calculations, and somehow ended up having dinner together. She was divorced too, understood the complications of blended families, didn't push for more than I could give. "Still on for dinner tomorrow. My kids want to meet yours." I typed back, "Let me check with them first. We'll let you know tonight." I wasn't rushing into anything, not this time. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. Patrick called once a month to check in, usually with some excuse about needing my opinion on a structural issue with his house. We both knew he was really checking to make sure I was okay. Last week, he'd mentioned that Jessica had reached out to him, asking if I'd be willing to talk. I'd declined. There was nothing left to say. The sun was setting over the neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Noah had moved on to practicing headers. Lily had closed her textbook and was watching him, occasionally shouting encouragement or technique tips. This was my life now, quieter than before, smaller in some ways, but honest. No lies festering beneath the surface. No second-guessing every late meeting or business trip. No wondering if the person sleeping beside me was the person I thought she was. I'd built my career on understanding structural integrity, knowing which materials would hold under pressure, which joints would fail, which foundations could support the weight placed on them. I'd failed to apply that same scrutiny to my own marriage, trusted when I should have verified, ignored the warning signs until the whole structure was compromised beyond repair. But I'd learned. God, had I learned? The thing about demolition is that it clears space for something new, something stronger, something built on solid ground with honest materials and transparent plans. I wasn't there yet. Maybe I'd never be. But I was building toward it, one day at a time, with my kids beside me and my eyes finally open. Noah jogged over, breathless and grinning. "Can we order pizza tonight?" "Sure, buddy." "Can Lily pick the toppings this time? I always pick." I looked at my son, this kid who'd watched his family implode and somehow came out of it kinder, more thoughtful than before. "Yeah, that sounds fair." He ran back to retrieve his ball, already calling up to his sister about pizza options. Fair, honest, transparent. Simple words. But they meant everything now. The truth is, betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your ability to trust your own judgment. Makes you question every memory, every moment, wondering what was real and what was performance. Jessica had given me 16 years of memories, and the affair had tainted all of them. I couldn't look at our wedding photos without wondering if she'd been capable of this even then. Couldn't remember family vacations without calculating whether she'd been texting Tyler the whole time. But I could look at my kids and know they were real. Know that whatever Jessica and I had become, whatever lies had poisoned our marriage, Lily and Noah were true. They were the good that came from those 16 years. The part worth salvaging. I'd won, in the legal sense. Kept the house, got primary custody, walked away financially stable while Jessica struggled to rebuild. But winning felt different than I'd expected. Less triumphant. More like survival. The real victory was smaller, quieter. It was Noah asking his sister to pick the pizza toppings. It was Lily doing her homework without being asked. It was me answering Emma's text with honest uncertainty instead of false confidence. It was building a life where the foundation was solid, even if the structure was still incomplete. I'd learned that you can't force someone to be honest, can't love them into loyalty, can't trust your way past betrayal. All you can do is decide what you'll accept, what you'll tolerate, what you're worth, and then build accordingly. The sun finished setting. The backyard lights clicked on automatically. Noah grabbed his ball and headed inside, Lily following behind him, already arguing good-naturedly about pizza toppings. I stood there a moment longer, looking at the house I'd fought to keep. Not because it was special or perfect, but because it was ours, mine and the kids. A place where we could rebuild without the rod of lies eating away at the foundation. Tomorrow, I'd text Emma back. Probably say yes to dinner, let the kids meet, see what happened. Take a chance, carefully measured and clearly calculated. But tonight, it was just pizza and homework and Noah's soccer highlights. The simple architecture of a life built on truth. And that, I'd learned, was enough. More than enough. It was everything.